You know what separates winners from losers in this world? His voice bounced around the room where all 23 of us were standing, packed shoulder to shoulder like we were waiting for something good to happen. We weren't. Winners know when to celebrate their success. Losers make excuses. He had his phone in his hand, tilted just enough so we could all see the photo on the screen. A house. Not just any house. The kind you see in movies where rich people live. Stone walls. A fountain right there in the front, with actual water shooting up into the air. Gardens that probably needed 3 people just to keep the grass looking that perfect. This is what happens when you put in the hours, when you make the tough choices, when you build something that matters. Someone next to me whispered, "How did he afford that?" He heard it. His smile got wider. "Because I earned it. That's how." My hands were shaking. I shoved them into my pockets so nobody would see. 3 years. 3 years I'd spent perfecting the technical drawings for the product we were supposed to launch next quarter. The kind of work that lives inside your head even when you're trying to sleep. The kind that made me tell my mother I couldn't come stay with her after her operation because we were in a crucial phase. She said she understood. She always said she understood. He kept talking. "Now, I know some of you have been worried about the restructuring rumors. I want to be transparent with you." Transparent. That word tasted bitter, just hearing it. The higher-ups have made some decisions. Tough decisions. The kind leaders have to make. Effective immediately, this entire division is being dissolved. You'll receive 2 weeks of pay. We appreciate everything you've contributed. The room didn't go quiet because it was never loud to begin with, but something changed in the air. Like everybody stopped breathing at the same time. "Wait," someone said. Julio, who had twin daughters and brought in pictures of them every week to show anyone who'd look. "We're being let go? All of us? Budget cuts. You understand. These things happen in business. But we're 3 months from launch. We've been working on this for... The decision is final. Security will help you gather your personal items. Thank you for your service." He left. Just walked right out while we stood there trying to make sense of what had just happened. Some people started crying. Others just stared at the walls like answers might appear there if they looked hard enough. I didn't cry. I was too busy doing math in my head. My name is Claudia. I'm 31 years old, and for the last 5 years, I've been handling the money tracking for our division. Not the glamorous kind of work. Nobody asks you about it at parties. But it means I see where every single bit of money comes from, and where it goes. Every payment, every transfer, every deposit. 3 weeks ago, while I was going through the usual monthly checks, I found something strange. Money was appearing in his personal account from somewhere overseas. Not a little money. The kind of numbers that make you stop and read them 3 times to make sure you're seeing it right. 500,000. Then a week later, 700,000. Then just 4 days ago, a full million. I didn't tell anyone. I just kept watching, kept tracking. The overseas account had a name attached to it, buried in the transfer details. A name I recognized immediately because we talked about them every single day at work. Our biggest rival, the company that had been trying to beat us to market for 2 years and kept failing because our designs were better. Our process was better. Our 3 years of late nights and sacrificed weekends were better. Suddenly, they weren't failing anymore. 2 weeks ago, they announced they were launching a product next month that sounded exactly like ours. Not similar, exact. The same technical specifications we'd been perfecting. The same unique solutions we'd spent months figuring out. Everyone in our division was confused about how they'd managed it, how they'd suddenly caught up and passed us. I wasn't confused. I spent the next week tracing where that overseas money came from, who authorized it. When it moved, I didn't print anything, didn't save anything on the work computers. I just memorized it, the account numbers, the dates, the amounts. I'd go home and write it all down by hand, then read it over and over until I could recite it like a prayer. He'd sold everything we'd made, every design, every improvement, every breakthrough that came from someone staying up until 3 in the morning because they finally figured out why something wasn't working. He took it all and handed it to our rival for money. Money he used to buy a mansion with a fountain, and now we were all being fired for budget cuts. Before I continue further, thank you for listening to my story. It means everything to me that you're here. I'd love to know where you're listening from. What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. Now, back to the story. Security showed up 10 minutes later. Young guys who looked uncomfortable, like they didn't sign up for this part of the job. They started at one end of the room and worked their way down, standing next to people, while they emptied their drawers and packed up the personal things that accumulate when you spend more time somewhere than your own home. Julio was arguing with someone on his phone, probably his wife, probably trying to explain how they were going to pay for things now. Bethany, who'd been with the division for 8 years, just sat at her workspace crying silently while she pulled down the pictures of her kids she'd taped up around her area. I grabbed my coat, my water bottle, the little plant someone gave me 2 birthdays ago that I'd somehow kept alive. Everything fit in one bag. "Sorry about this," the security guy said when he got to me. "Not your fault. Still sucks." I nodded because there wasn't anything else to say to that. Outside in the parking area, people were standing around in small groups. Some were already on their phones, calling people they knew at other places, trying to line up new work before the panic set in. Others were just sitting in their vehicles, not turning the engine on, not going anywhere. I got in my car and sat there for a minute. My phone buzzed. A message in the group chat we all used for work, except it wasn't about work anymore, because none of us had work. "Did you see his social media?" The message was from Angela. I hadn't. I opened it. There he was, standing in front of that mansion, arms spread wide like he was hugging the whole world. The caption underneath, "Hard work pays off. Grateful for the opportunities I've created. Living the dream." Posted 2 hours ago, right around the time he was telling us we were all losing our jobs. The comments underneath were full of congratulations. People telling him he deserved it. People asking for career advice. People saying he was an inspiration. My phone buzzed again. The group chat was exploding now. Everyone was seeing it. Everyone was saying the same things. How dare he, after what he just did to us? The nerve, the absolute nerve. I closed the app. I didn't write anything in the chat. I drove home in the middle of the day, which felt wrong. The streets were full of people who had normal lives. People going to lunch. People running errands. People who hadn't just lost their jobs while their boss posted mansion photos. My apartment was dark when I got there. I'd left before sunrise that morning, like always. I turned on the lights and dropped my bag by the entrance and just stood there for a minute. Then I got to work. I pulled out all the handwritten notes I'd been keeping, spread them across my kitchen counter, started organizing everything by date, by amount, by where the money came from and where it went. There was a pattern. Every time our rival made an announcement about a breakthrough, there was a payment to his account the week before. Every single time. I'd heard through Angela, who kept track of industry news obsessively, that there was already an investigation happening. Not into our division chief, into our rival. Something about how they'd managed to make such rapid progress in their development. Questions about whether they'd obtained their advances legitimately. The investigation had started small, but Angela said they'd expanded it last week. More people involved. More questions being asked. I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. There was a tip line. Anonymous. For people who had information about corporate wrongdoing. I dialed before I could talk myself out of it. A woman answered. She sounded tired, like she'd been answering phones all day and heard every kind of story there was to hear. "I have information about the investigation into the competitor breach case," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Go ahead." I told her everything. The account numbers I'd memorized, the exact dates money moved, the amounts, how they lined up perfectly with every announcement our rival made. I told her about the mansion, about the timing, about 23 people who'd just lost their jobs while the person responsible was posting celebration photos. She stopped sounding tired halfway through, started asking questions, specific ones, asked me to repeat the account numbers twice, asked if I had proof. I work in banking reconciliation. Worked. I saw all the transactions myself. The records are still in the system. Can you send documentation? I don't have access anymore. They just terminated everyone. But it's all there. You just have to look. She was quiet for a moment. I could hear her writing something down. And you're certain about the connection between the payments and the announcements? Every single time. I made a timeline. The money moves. Then a week later, they announce something new. It happened 6 times. What's your name? I'd rather not say. That's fine. But if we need to follow up, you won't need to. Everything I told you can be verified. The banking records will show it all. I hung up before she could ask anything else. Then I waited. Waiting is harder than people think. Every hour felt like 3 days. I kept checking the news, kept looking at social media to see if anything changed, kept imagining that maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe I'd read the numbers wrong. Maybe there was some explanation I hadn't thought of, but I knew I hadn't made a mistake. Day 1 after the call, nothing happened. He posted more photos, this time from inside the mansion. High ceilings, chandeliers, a kitchen bigger than my entire apartment. Day 2, still nothing. The group chat was full of people talking about job interviews, about how hard it was to explain why they were suddenly looking for work, about bills coming due and savings running out faster than expected. Day 3. Angela sent a message just to me. Not the group, just me. Did you hear? They expanded the investigation again. They're looking at financial records now, not just technical development. My heart started beating faster. Where did you hear that? My friend works in the legal office at the regulatory board. She said they got a tip that changed everything. They're going through banking records from the past 6 months. I didn't respond, just stared at my phone. Day 4, I woke up to 17 messages in the group chat, all saying the same thing in different ways. He'd been arrested. I opened the news app with shaking hands. There it was, his photo, the headline talking about corporate espionage charges, fraud, selling protected information to competitors. Government investigators had shown up at his house the morning before, seized everything, froze all his accounts. The mansion was gone, taken as evidence of proceeds from illegal activity. The article said he was facing 12 years minimum if convicted, maybe more, depending on what else they found. Our rival was mentioned too. They were being sued. The amount was in the billions. The article said the legal costs alone would likely destroy the company. Their leadership was denying everything, but the evidence was apparently overwhelming. I read the article 3 times. Then I read all the other articles covering the same story. They all said basically the same thing. The investigation had received a detailed anonymous tip that led them directly to the financial records. Once they had those, everything else fell into place. The group chat was chaos. People celebrating, people saying they knew something was wrong, people sharing the articles over and over like they couldn't believe it was real. My phone rang. Angela, can you believe this? She said the second I answered. Can you actually believe this? It's a lot, I said. A lot? Claudia, this is insane. He's going to prison. Actual prison. And did you see the part about the lawsuit? They're going after our rival for everything. Everything. I saw. Good. I hope they take every last bit. I hope he loses that stupid mansion and everything else. I hope. She kept talking, but I wasn't really listening anymore. Because there was another article. A smaller one, buried under all the breaking news about the arrest. The headline said something about contract violations and employee rights. I opened it. The investigation had revealed that all the work our division had done was protected, which meant our rival couldn't actually use any of it, which meant the launch they'd planned was dead. But more than that, it meant everyone who'd been fired had a case. A strong one. The company was already being pressured to bring everyone back, with compensation for the time we'd lost, with damages for wrongful termination. The article quoted someone from the legal board saying it was one of the clearest cases they'd seen. I sat down on my floor, right there in the middle of my apartment. Claudia, you still there? Angela's voice came through the phone. Yeah, sorry, I'm here. Did you see the thing about getting our jobs back? Just read it. With 3 years of back pay. 3 years. Do you know what that means? That's not just getting our jobs back. That's getting everything. Everything we lost. 3 years. The number was specific. It was how long we'd all been working on the product that got sold. How long we'd sacrificed for something we thought mattered. I have to go, I said. I'll talk to you later. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were still shaking, but different than before. Not from fear or anger, from something else I couldn't quite name. I'd spent 3 weeks sitting on information that could have changed everything. 3 weeks watching and waiting and wondering if I should say something, if it was my place, if anyone would even believe me. And then I'd made one phone call, one anonymous call where I just told the truth about what I'd seen. And now everything was different. The group chat kept buzzing, more people joining in, more articles being shared. Someone found his social media and posted screenshots before he'd deleted everything. The mansion photos were gone. The celebration captions were gone. All of it, just disappeared, like it had never existed. But people had saved it. Screenshots lived forever. Julio sent a message. My wife is crying. Happy crying. We thought we were going to lose the house. Now this. Bethany sent a photo of herself smiling. First time I'd seen her smile in the 4 days since we'd all been terminated. My kids asked why I was home so much. I didn't know what to tell them. Now I do. Message after message. Everyone processing what this meant. That justice wasn't just some abstract concept. That sometimes the truth actually mattered. That waiting and watching and being patient could lead to something real. I didn't write anything in the chat. I just read what everyone else was saying. 2 days later, we all got letters, official ones, from the company, apologizing for the wrongful termination, offering our positions back, with full back pay for the 3 years we'd worked on the stolen product, with additional compensation for damages, with a guarantee that the division would be restructured under new leadership. The letter was 3 pages long and full of language that sounded like it had been written by people trying very hard not to admit fault while admitting fault. I signed the paperwork they sent over. So did everyone else in the group chat. We went back to work the following Monday. Same building, same workspaces, different feeling. Someone had already cleaned out his office. Everything personal was gone. The photos of his family, the awards he'd won, the little decorations that made it look like a human worked there. All of it just erased like he'd never existed. The new division chief was a woman named Patricia, who'd been brought in from another department. She called a meeting our first day back. I know the last few weeks have been difficult, she said. She didn't smile when she said it, didn't try to make it lighter than it was. What happened was wrong, completely wrong. I can't undo it, but I can promise you it won't happen again. Not while I'm here. She told us about new oversight systems being put in place, new checks and balances so one person couldn't make the kind of decisions he'd made, new protections for the work we did. Your work matters, she said. The product you've been developing for 3 years matters, and we're going to finish it, together, the right way. Julio raised his hand. What about him? What's going to happen? The investigation is ongoing, but from what I understand, the evidence is substantial. He'll face consequences, real ones. That was all she said about it. Then she moved on to talking about timelines and launch dates and all the practical things that needed to happen now. After the meeting, people scattered back to their workspaces. I sat down at mine and just looked at the plant I'd brought back. Still alive somehow. Still green. Angela appeared next to me. You're quiet. Just thinking. About how fast things can change. How one day everything is falling apart, and then suddenly it's not. She nodded. Feels like a dream. Like, I'm going to wake up and we're all still fired and he's still posting mansion photos. It's not a dream. I know. But it feels like it should be. Things don't usually work out like this. Usually people like him get away with it. She was right. Things usually didn't work out like this. But I didn't say that out loud. The first week back felt strange. We were all doing the same work we'd done before, but everything was different. People laughed more, stayed later not because they had to, but because they wanted to see something finished. The weight that had been sitting on all of us was gone. The news kept covering the case. Every few days, there was an update. More evidence found. More charges filed. His legal team was trying to argue that he'd acted alone, that nobody else knew what he was doing. But the financial trail was too clear. Every payment, every transfer, every piece of information that moved from our files to our rival's development team, it all pointed back to him. Our rival company was falling apart. Their stock dropped 40% in 2 weeks. 3 of their executives resigned. The lawsuit was moving forward, and everyone covering it said there was no way they'd survive. Too much evidence, too many violations, too much money they'd have to pay back. I watched it all unfold from a distance, read the articles, listened to my coworkers talk about it during breaks, but I didn't say much myself. Angela noticed. She always noticed things. You've been different since we came back, she said one afternoon. We were alone in the break area. Everyone else had already gone home, but we'd both stayed late working on final revisions. Different how? Quieter. I mean, you've always been quiet, but this is different. Like, you're somewhere else even when you're standing right here. I didn't know what to say to that. She kept going. It's like you're not surprised by any of this. Everyone else is shocked that justice actually happened, that he actually faced consequences. But you're just, calm, like you expected it. My chest felt tight. Maybe I just process things differently. Maybe she was watching me carefully. Or maybe you know something the rest of us don't. I don't know anything. I just saw the same news everyone else saw. She nodded slowly, didn't push, but something in her expression said she wasn't entirely convinced. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Angela had said, about how I wasn't surprised. She was right. I wasn't, because I'd known what was coming. I'd set it in motion, and I didn't regret it. Not even a little bit. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that carrying this secret was going to get heavier the longer I held it. That eventually someone would connect the dots, the timing, my access to the financial records, the anonymous tip that came right after we were all fired. I thought about telling Angela. She was the closest thing I had to a friend at work, but telling one person meant it wouldn't stay with one person. Secrets had a way of spreading even when people promised they wouldn't tell. So I kept it to myself. 3 months after we came back, the trial date was set. 6 months out, the news coverage said it would be one of the biggest corporate espionage cases in years. Multiple charges, multiple defendants, since our rival's leadership was also being tried. Prison sentences that could stretch over a decade. His legal team tried to make a deal. Offered to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for reduced time. The prosecutors refused. They wanted the full trial. Wanted everything exposed publicly so it could never be buried or forgotten. Our product launched 4 months after we returned. The real version, the one we'd actually created. Not the stolen copy our rival had tried to rush out before everything collapsed. The launch was huge, bigger than anyone expected. All the news coverage about the case had created attention. People wanted to support the team that had been wronged, wanted to see justice in action. Our sales in the first week broke records. Patricia called another meeting. This time she was smiling. I want to thank all of you, she said. This product exists because you refused to give up, because you came back and finished what you started, because you're all exceptional at what you do. She announced bonuses, significant ones, based on the launch success, based on the company wanting to show appreciation for everything we'd been through. The room erupted, people hugging, people crying again, but for different reasons than before. Julio was on his phone immediately, probably calling his wife to tell her. I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been wound tight for months. We'd won. Actually won. Not just survived, but came out stronger. After the meeting, Patricia asked me to stay back. My stomach dropped. Had she figured it out? Was there some way they'd trace the anonymous tip back to me? I wanted to talk to you about something, she said once everyone else had left. Okay. You handled the banking reconciliation for this division under the previous leadership. Yes, that's detailed work. Requires attention. Requires noticing when things don't add up. I didn't say anything, just waited. The investigation revealed that the financial irregularities had been happening for months, which means they would have shown up in the regular reconciliation reports. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might be able to hear it. I'm not asking you anything, she continued. I just want you to know that attention to detail matters, that sometimes the people doing the quiet work are the ones who see the most, and that I'm glad you were paying attention. She held my gaze for a moment, then smiled slightly. That's all. You can go. I walked out on shaking legs. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. And she was telling me it was okay, that she understood. I drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in months, maybe years. The trial happened 6 months later, like scheduled. It lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, testimony from people at our rival company who'd received the stolen information, digital trails showing exactly when files were accessed and transferred. His defense tried to argue that he'd been under pressure, that the company had unrealistic expectations, that he'd made a mistake but didn't deserve the punishment they were seeking. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 weeks after that. 14 years. Not 12 like the initial estimates. 14. Because the judge said the betrayal of trust made it worse. That he'd had people depending on him and he'd chosen to destroy their lives for personal gain. Our rival's executives got varying sentences. 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. The company itself was dissolved. Assets sold off to pay the lawsuit settlements. The news coverage was everywhere. People calling it a landmark case, A message that corporate crime had real consequences, that you couldn't just steal and cheat and expect to walk away. I watched the sentencing coverage from my apartment, alone, with a cup of tea getting cold in my hands. When they showed him being led out of the courtroom, he looked smaller than I remembered, older, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with him. I felt something then. Not satisfaction exactly, not happiness that he was going to prison, just a quiet sense of completion, that a chapter had closed and we could all move forward. The group chat had been active during the trial but went silent after sentencing. What was there left to say? It was over, truly over. Life went back to normal after that, the kind of normal where you go to work and do your job and come home and live your life. Our product continued selling well. The division expanded. Patricia hired 12 new people. I got promoted 8 months after the trial ended, not to anything dramatic, just a step up in responsibility and pay. Patricia said it was because I was thorough and reliable, and the division needed people like that. Angela got promoted too. So did Julio and Bethany and most of the others who'd been there through everything. Patricia said she valued loyalty and perseverance, said she wanted to build a team that trusted each other. 1 year after everything happened, Angela and I went out for dinner, just the two of us. Something we'd never done before. "Can I ask you something?" she said halfway through the meal. "Sure. Did you know? Before it all came out, did you know what he was doing?" I took a sip of water, put the glass down carefully. "Why do you ask?" "Because you were the only one who didn't seem shocked when he got arrested. Everyone else was stunned, but you just seemed prepared." I could have lied, could have said I was just good at hiding my emotions, could have deflected, but I was tired of carrying it alone. "I saw the financial records," I said quietly. "The payments from the overseas account. I tracked them. I saw where they came from and where they went. I knew what it meant." She stared at me. "You knew?" "Yes." "And you reported it?" "Yes." She leaned back in her chair. "Process this." "When?" "The day we got fired. I called the tip line that night." "You—" She stopped. Started again. "You're the reason the investigation found him." "The investigation was already happening. I just gave them the specific information they needed to look in the right place." She was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across and squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she said. "For all of us. Thank you." I felt tears building but pushed them back. I couldn't let him get away with it. We all gave up so much for that work. He had no right to sell it. He didn't. And now he's paying for it because you did something. We finished dinner, talked about other things, normal things, work and life and plans for the future, but something had shifted. Someone else knew, and it felt good not to carry it completely alone anymore. 2 years after everything happened, I was cleaning out old files from my apartment and found the handwritten notes. The ones I'd made tracking all the financial transactions, account numbers, dates, amounts. I stared at them for a while, remembered sitting at my kitchen counter spreading them out, remembered the phone call, remembered waiting to see if anything would happen. Then I shredded them, fed them through the machine until they were just tiny pieces of paper that couldn't be put back together. I didn't need them anymore. The truth had already done its work. Life continued. Work continued. I kept handling banking reconciliation because I was good at it, and it mattered. Patricia kept building the division into something stronger. Our product line expanded. We started working on new projects. Sometimes I'd see articles about corporate crime, about people getting caught doing the same things he'd done, and I'd wonder if our case had actually changed anything. If it had made other people think twice before stealing or cheating or betraying the people who trusted them. I hoped it had, but I knew that hope wasn't enough, that justice required people willing to speak up, willing to say something when they saw something wrong, even when it was scary, even when they didn't know if anyone would listen. I'd been one of those people, and I'd do it again, because some things matter more than staying quiet. Some things are worth the risk. Thank you for listening to my story all the way through. It's not easy sharing something this personal, but I'm grateful you stayed with me. If this story meant something to you, I'd love it if you could hit that like button and drop a comment letting me know what you thought. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real stories from real people who've lived through things that changed them, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for being here. It matters more than you know.